Good morning, doctor. Now I will introduce my proposal. The topic of my proposal is the impact of principal instructional leadership on teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China. And the first part is introduction and background. In the introduction part, I introduced what is the principal instructional leadership and what is teacher advocacy according to some research. According to Hellinger 2020, it proposed that principal instructional leadership is critical to improve school performance. High-rated principals perform better in instructional leadership practice because they are better able to coordinate and integrate resources to ensure that the overall goals of the school are met. And according to Gacolia 2014, teacher advocacy is a reflection of how confident they are in their capacity to help students to succeed. This entails assisting students in their learning, developing worthwhile projects for them, and successfully altering their learning preference. And nowadays, many scholars have proved that there is a direct and favorable correlation between principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy. I list part of some of them, like Dura, Kim, and Li, Liu, and Ma and Mary. And the next part is the background. And in 2021, China has implemented the professional standard for elementary and secondary school principle. And it set out 6 professional responsibilities that principals should undertake. This responsibility include planning for the growing of the school, fostering a culture of learning, enhance internal administration, and enhance the external setting. And among them, guiding the instruction and the curriculum demonstrate the principal leadership skills in terms of learning as well as instruction, which is also crucial for boosting education quality and the school productivities. And nowadays, China is in an important period of curriculum reform. And elementary school can be said to be the forefront of the new curriculum reform. It requires elementary school principal to be able to adjust in teacher management in timely and effectively during this period. And we also know there is a big gap between the urban and rural place. There are disparities between urban and rural education in terms of teaching staff, teaching equipment, and teaching atmosphere. It is evidently that narrowing the gap between a rural and urban place improves the quality of education, and cultivating high-quality talent becomes the key task in the current stage of educational reforms. And with the trend of the globalization of accountabilities, the curriculum, staff motivation, and the capacity building are all things that principals are supposed to be in charge of. The next part is statement of the problem. I list 2 problems I think nowadays which exist. The first one is more attention is being paid to the principal instructional leadership to lead instruction effectively. The theory of principal instructional leadership originated in America, and the mainstream view internationally defines educational leadership as the behalf of principles that promote both teacher instruction and teacher learning. Subsequently, many scholars discovered the principal instructional leadership is fundamental for schools to develop, which sparked interest in researching it. And the second is there are shortcomings in current theoretical research. In the educational psychological area, teacher advocacy is defined as the belief or confidence a teacher have in their capacity to advance both individual and group learning among students. It's kind of subjective or judgment by teachers themselves based on their experience. It's not very objective. And the existing research mainly concentrate on establish a link between teacher advocacy and principal instructional leadership, but how it influence and is there any intermediary factor between these 2 variables is now is less research to talk about it. And for the research objectives is for I list 4. The first one is to examine principal instructional leadership in elementary school in Jeju, China. The second is to exam teachers' advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China. And the third is to investigate the relationship between principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China. The last one is to examine which of the dimension among principal instructional leadership has an impact on teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China. And for the research question, it is based on the research objectives. To what are the principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China, and what is the relationship between principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju, China, and which of the dimension among principal instructional leadership had an impact on teacher advocacy. Well, that is the research questions. And as next part is research design. This study applied non-experimental design which developed a survey questionnaire using teacher advocacy as dependent variables, and the three dimensions of principal instructional leadership as the independent variables. Under this study randomly selected 350 teacher in public elementary school in Jeju City as the research sample, and distribute online questionnaire to them and analyze the collected data. And for the research methodology risk, the quantitative research method will be applied in this study. And the questionnaire method refers to research approaches that involve the collection of data on the actual situation of the research subjects using pre-designed or self-compute questionnaire based on the existing research goals. This paper used Likert scale. After use Likert scale, the 5 response level of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are used to describe the degree of agreement of the test taker to comprehend the state of things for the principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy, and to make clear the relationship between the two variables. And this article chose elementary school in Jeju to conduct the questionnaire survey analysis. This provides a reliable database on the further analysis. And for the data analysis techniques, this study relied primarily on quantitative method for data interpretation. A descriptive study of principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy is conducted in an effort to identify the interactions between the two variables. The three dimensions of principal instructional leadership and their overall effects on teacher advocacy. To illustrate the difference identified in the evolution, tables and figures are produced. Well, the next part is the significance of the study. Well, after research, we can have a clear knowledge of the relationship between principal instructional leadership and teacher advocacy in elementary school in Jeju. And we also can figure out which of the dimensions among principal instructional leadership had an impact on teacher advocacy. And it also provides a clear pathway for effective implementation of principal instructional leadership, and a certain reference value for further research on elementary school. Well, the last part is a reference. Here are part of reference I cite in this research. Well, that's all. Thank you.